How you doing? I'm alive. I'll just get rid of this paper. Hi, Andy Holt here. Just 1 second. That, like, my camera needs wiping. There you go. Better. Right. Andy Holt here, back today with a live. And I'm going to talk about interviewing for a new job. I'm going to cover this from both perspectives. What the hirer should do and what the interviewee should do. So it is very different because there's a fight here and there's many things, and I think there's a psychology to it. Because when you go for a new job, there's a personality side to it, right? And you can end up with something called the halo effect, which is where you instantly like someone on first impressions, right? Now, if you think about the psychology here, who is that in favor of? Many people, many hirers make the if you're hiring someone for a job, let's say you're a business owner, the worst mistake that you can do is look for the effects of the halo effect. You know, be drawn in by the halo effect, because if you meet someone, you might think, oh yeah, I'm going to see if they're a really good personality, a really good fit in the team. Oh, that's great and everything. Yeah, you do want a personality, you know, yourself, but the halo effect there might sway your opinion to go with that person based on first impressions rather than have they actually got the attributes and the skills to do the job. So I definitely think the halo effect, the first impression, is in favour of the candidate, not the hirer. Definitely. Let me know if you agree. Right, so I'm going to cover it. Firstly, if you're the hirer, right, I've got 2 books that are going to back up my thoughts on this, and I have covered it in a couple of ways. One is, do you know Whitman's Traction, which is the entrepreneurial operating system? Specifically, I'm going to be referencing the people component, which is on the EOS model. The people component is massive, and it's based on both the right people in the right seats. So the right people does cover a little bit of the halo effect. It covers the personality and, you know, how the person gels with the team and everything. But very, very importantly, there's no point having the right person if they're not in the right seat. So the right seat means, are they in the right job role? Have they got the right skills and attributes for that job? All that kind of thing, right? So we need, in Traction, we want, as the hirer, we want to find people for our team that are the right people in the right seats, right? And then the second book that I'm going to use is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. My version of this is absolutely battered because I've wrote that many notes in this book. It's a fantastic book. So in here, right, Daniel Kahneman. So we're looking at this from the perspective of the hirer first. Daniel Kahneman says the problem with the halo effect is you end up getting sold on someone's first impressions, personality. And if you've ever hired anyone who you really get on with and got a good personality, and then, you know, 6 months down the line, you realise that they haven't got the skills to do the job, it's too fucking late then. You've spent 6 months of salary on them, and it's like, shit, we should have really asked them a few technical questions, looked at their experience, all that kind of thing. So when you're hiring someone, the first thing you do is you're going to look at the CV, and that's going to give you a on paper snapshot of that person. And you can tell a lot from a CV, like how's it written, all that kind of thing. Is it coming across well? But again, that's subject to the halo effect. So I'm just going to read you what Daniel Kahneman says. It's on page 232. Right. And he says basically, first of all, right, he says, suppose that you need to hire a sales representative for the firm. If you're serious about hiring the best possible person for the job, this is what you should do. First, select a few traits that are prerequisites for success in this position. You know, whether it's the technical side of the role, technical proficiency, engaging personality, reliability, and so on. Don't overdo it, just select 6. These traits should then be as an independent as possible of each other. So you want to pick 6 traits that are independent, right? And then you want to make a list of questions for each trait, right? Think of questions for each trait and then weight those questions in a score from 1 to 5. So almost like try and predict the answer, the best answer to it and the worst answer, and weight the questions between 1 to 5, right? And then you should have an idea of what is very weak and very strong. And then what you're going to do is you're going to ask those questions in the interview, right? And you're going to do them one at a time to avoid the halo effect, right? So you're going to ask one set of questions for one trait at a time, and you're going to score them based on the answers, what fits the, you know, the criteria from the weighted 1 to 5, based on what you've done up front, so you're prepared for it, right? And that what you're trying to do here is you're trying to test on competence for that role. Because if you don't do this, you're going to get swayed by that halo effect. So that person's going to come in, they're just, you know, sharp dressed, they look really good, they're really prepared, they've got a buzzing personality, you really get on with them. And then because you like them, you know, it's like an emotional thing. Like, you know, in sales, we buy on emotion and then use logic later to rationalize it. This is what's going to happen with the halo effect. You're going to, you know, first impressions, I like that person, that's going to be in your mind. Now you've got to, as the hirer, you've got to try and get rid of that and ask these questions with weighted answers where you're prepared up front, right? Now, that's all good, that's all great, and when you go into an interview, right? But if you're the candidate going in for an interview, you want the opposite. You want to go in there, you absolutely want to hit them with the halo effect. You want to go in, you're well prepared, you're very confident. It's all about your mannerisms, you know, practicing handshakes, whatever that might be, the way you sit, the way you carry yourself. The halo effect is definitely in your favor. And if you can go in there and be really, really successful, there's a lot of psychology. Whenever I've gone for an interview, I'm in business now, so I've not done this for a while. When you're in business, you still apply for jobs, but you're applying for clients. It's different. But whenever I went for a job in the past, when I had a career, I always made sure that I was going for, I've had some absolutely brilliant interviews where I've gone in and I've been in the power position. So you got to think, right, are you desperate for the job or are they headhunting in you? And if they're headhunting you, which has happened to me, you're in a massively stronger position. And you always want to go into that. It's always better to go into an interview with something in your pocket, you know, like another successful interview. You've already got a job offer on the table, so you're not desperate to negotiate, right? And the more power you have, you can go in there with a psychology of like, well, you know, it's in your favor and you start to bargain, right? How you doing? You all right? So when you're going in there, you want to hit them with first impressions and you want to make it feel like, you know, you want to flip the sort of buyer-seller dynamic that they're trying to get you, they're trying to headhunt you. Always, obviously, try and negotiate at the very top of the salary band, all the basic things, right? So I've helped a few people with this, whether it's writing CVs, what to do about the job, how to sell yourself in an interview. Like I say, I've not done this for many years, but I am a person that hires people, and I have helped other people get a leg up in their career. I did a really good video on my channel called How Long You Should Stay in Your Job, which is based on the tenure trap. How long before you need to move on, because I believe that you should only spend about up to 5 years in any particular role where you've pretty much got most of the learning out of it, and then you need to then either get promoted upwards, sidestep, leave the particular role and go to another company, or change your role to get even more experience. I'll put a link in the description if you want to watch that one. It is really good. It's one of my most popular videos. So yeah, so that's what I would say. If you're going to go in, you want the halo effect to be on your side. Very much. I was speaking to one of my friends, went for a job interview recently, and she said she went into this interview and It was very sterile, like there was no personality and everything, and they were a bit taken aback by it, by saying usually when you go into an interview, you've got all the pleasantries and the high, see if you get on with the team, see if you fit the vibe, and there were none of that. It was very sterile, and it was just a list of questions and blah, 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 blah. And I bet, I said to him, I said, I know what they're doing there. They're doing what Daniel Kahneman promotes in Thinking Fast and Slow. They're trying to avoid the halo effect. They're trying to stop you swaying them that they should hire you because you're the best personality. How many times have you ever, I mean, I've been there where I've hired people and then, you know, you get a few months down the line and you think, yeah, great personality, but they're just not up to the job, you know, and you might have made the wrong hire, you know, when you might see someone else who's very militant, but, you know, like very diligent in the work, but not really, you know, got the personality, and you might think they're a little bit strange. I've hired some of the best people, especially I'm in the software business. So if you think about software, you know, you're not really talking about massive personalities there. So I'm going to get to your comments. Just one more thing that I would say in terms of going for an interview is, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. Go on, I'll get to your comments. Right. My missus just got a very high profile job. She failed her last 6 interviews. I told her, for those one, stop selling yourself, stop begging. Yeah, this is it, right? Stop begging. Let them think that you're opening up to the option of having it. Right. This is about the buyer-seller dynamic. Yeah, if you go into an interview on the back foot, I'll give you an example. Before I started my business, I was in corporate consulting. And when I went for that job, I got headhunted. Right. I had a friend who we went to university together, and wherever he worked, he was like, you know, climbing the greasy pole and everything, going through all the corporate systems. Wherever he worked, he used to always sell me in as a freelancer. You know, I used to do freelance work for wherever he worked. And then this big firm that I did a bit of work for, or saw my portfolio, decided to try and headhunt me. And he had a really good job in construction management at the time. And anyway, I went for the interview, and because they'd headhunted me, I just went in really, really, really high on the salary. I said, look, I've got a great package, I've got a company car, all this, I get everything, all these benefits, blah, blah, blah. In order for me to move, it needs to be better than this, you know what I mean? Because I like my job. So I just set my stall out like that, and there was a lot of back and forth. It must have been like 4 or 5 offers, right? You know, they kept coming back with counter offers and this, that, and the other. In the end, I got a really good deal, right? A really good deal. Someone else who came into the business 3 months after me, this was in 2007, 2008, right? And if you remember back in 2008, there was like a moment where it was all, and then you had that Lehman Brothers crash, didn't you? And the economy just went, ooh, there was like a worldwide recession that happened in the space of weeks. So I'd got my offer signed up at the very peak, and then someone else came in 3 months later who was more qualified than me, a lot more, like, you know. But they came in on the back foot. They'd just been made redundant because the economy had tanked, and they came in almost like begging, right, for a job. Very much on the back foot. They got nowhere near the package I got. And this is the point, yeah, if you go in begging, a lot of people, this is what I've helped people with, a lot of people, you know, if you're, it is like a self-worth thing. If you don't believe that you've got the skills that you need for that job, you don't believe, it's like an identity thing. You know, I talk about identity on my channel a lot. You've got to believe in your own identity and live it. And that means, you know, if you see yourself as this person in this role and that's who you are, you've got to live in accordance with it and believe it. And that's what you do. When you go into that interview, you actually believe in yourself. You're going to go in there and, you know, and just smash it. And when you say smash it, it's like, never sell yourself short. Don't be afraid to go back and negotiate. Like when I first got that offer from that company, it's not the first time that it's happened. I've always been good at it. When I got that offer, I just went back and I just laid the facts down. I said, listen, I've got this salary currently. I've got a company car. I've got a company mobile phone. I've got all these healthcare benefits. I've got all this, that, and the other. I think that makes it worth that. And also I'm happy in my job. So in order to move, I need X amount more. And I just went back and forward. It was about 3 or 4 times. And because I believed in myself and my skills, and I wasn't prepared to take the first offer, I actually got the right deal. Obviously, there was some timing in that too. And the other thing is, obviously, going into the interview, I really laid it on about, like I went in, I met everyone, shook everyone's hand, made sure I was polite and friendly, carried myself well. So the halo effect went there. I had a great portfolio, good CV, halo effect, and I negotiated hard. Right? If you can get all them things in play, that's how you do it. But back to being the hirer, I until I've read these 2 books, like I've read other books, but these 2 in particular, until I read these 2 books, whenever I'd hire people, so in my tech business, I've been through, like we're on our 3rd major team, and this current team are totally different, and we're all together. But prior to that, I used to hire people based on personality, right? Because that's what I thought. Small business, we've all got to get on with each other. And it was only like, I think round 2 of the team, I hired people that were a bit less on personality and more on skills. So by that time, I remember I used to say, well, I was having a chat with Leonie, who's marketing. She works for herself now. She used to work for me doing marketing. She now has her own agency. And we've been speaking this week. And she said to me, she said, I loved it when you turned around and used to call us a team of misfits. And that's the point, right? Actually, the book's here. One sec. Rob Moore's book. This is another book, right? Rob Moore's Life Leverage, where he says you want to hire for the role. Don't hire a stereotype of yourself. You're not looking for a prodigy. You're looking to hire a team. When you're a small business, you want to hire a team of misfits, which means complementary skills. And I said that, I remember Leonie saying, I loved it when you called us a team of misfits. And that's what it was. She said, you said that one of your skills was that you could hire the unemployable. And that honestly what it was. I used to hire people with, let's say, sometimes not always the best social skills, but they had the underlying skills underneath. And that's sometimes when you're a small business, that's what you have to do to get ahead. Because if you find someone with an exceptional skill set and they've got brilliant social skills, they'll usually want crazy money. You know, that was like where I was, right? I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but the one thing I've always survived on is my skills, right? I was always had very good skills. And if you could have good skills and let's call it the emotional intelligence. So, you know, stand up for yourself, be able to negotiate, be able to use, you know, communication skills, all that kind of thing. Then you become at the top of the tree. Now, when you're a small business, you can't afford those people. You can't. So I would argue that it's better to find someone, the best type of people when you're a small business, I think, depends if they're client facing. If they're not client facing, because we're going to cover that next, if they're in a technical role, right, you want to get someone who's maybe not got the best communication skills and people skills, but still has enthusiasm for the job, but has got brilliant technical skills, right? You're better to hire the misfits, right? Because if you try and get someone with the perfect personality, they're just going to want loads of money. Now, if you're in a sales role, it's very different. I think the sales role is different. You might want someone for the personality. But really, I believe you should be doing the selling yourself. Want to know a book to read, right? Why Nations Fail. I haven't read that one. I'd love to read that. As a hirer, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when the employee offers a higher salary than what you're willing to pay on the job? So this is like negotiation, right? I've done this, like I said, when I went into corporate consultancy. I was in a position because I already had a good job and I was being headhunted. So I just went back and said, well, I need this, and just held my line. Now, affordability is just one of those things. If you're a small business, then you can't afford it. Sometimes a bigger business can make an exception, right? They can make an exception for the rule, and then maybe on this case. But a lot of businesses, if it's a government organisation, the salary banded, the capped, I don't think they can do anything about it. The only way, what I've seen, so this is what happened with me in corporate, because I wanted, more money, the only way they could justify it is up me into a salary band. So they put you, it's almost like having a promotion before you start. Based on the job that they were looking to hire, they put you in a higher bracket, and then they can put you in a higher salary band. You will not find that in, say, if it's like public sector. It'd be very difficult. Only in the private sector, and it generally is when the business is really well established. If you can't afford someone, you can't afford someone, and that's the end of it. What I would do as a hire in that scenario would negotiate terms. So sometimes, like what I've had to do is say, okay, you can have that, but I'm going to do it pro rata, and you're only going to work for me 3 days a week, because you can't afford them 5 days. Then at least they still get pro rata what they want for part-time work. So I think that works. Would you stay located for focus back at locational, or focus on back in the office? Right, okay. Rent, staff members, productivity. I don't know. There's a bit of a, like everyone went online, everyone went working at home because of COVID. It massively changed it. I mean, prior to COVID, I was probably leaving the house to see a client 4 days out of 5. Right? All my meetings were face to face. The minute COVID came along, it went to all online, right? And then there's been a huge, what's actually happened since is not everyone should be working at home. I'm self-motivated, so I can work anywhere, right? I don't need to be in an office. A lot of the time now, I do go in the office just because I like to do these massive long days, and where my office is where the gym is, so I can just go straight in gym, whenever I want. But not everyone can do that. It's very difficult to stay self-motivated. I mean, if you listen to my content, the way I talk about our work, like, with the journal, I set my 3 things every day, and I do that. I ask myself every day, what are the top 3 things I need to do today? And I make sure I do them come what may. So I'm self-motivated. I'm all right. I don't suffer from working from home. The only thing about working from home, I'm home now, is cabin fever, right? So that's why I like to go out. I like to go to the gym, or go and see someone, or speak to people, whatever, right? Or go training. Cabin fever is a problem of being at home. But there's been a bit of a backlash, if you look. I think in the US politics, they're all like now saying, no, get everyone back in the office. Even Musk is saying, I want everyone in an office. And there's been this huge backlash now of trying to get everyone from the working home COVID back in the office. I still think we'll have this hybrid scenario. I've always been a hands-off employer. The way I just look at results, right, and just go, is this happening? Are we getting results from that person? And just be very careful. I think it's easier when you're a small business. If you're running a massive office, if I was running an office like where I used to work, the 100,000 staff worldwide, the office I was in probably had like 250 people, and every office had 200 people. If you're running a business like that with absolutely, loads of staff, there's no way I would do a working from home business unless it was some kind of commission structure, because they're not incentivized. Yep. Okay, I just had an interview last week and they asked me, what is your salary expectation? And I said between 30 and 40k. And then they asked me, what's that one? I don't even know what that word means. To negotiate in a way that may have sounded less. Right, okay, so they're asking you salary expectations. Right, you said 30 to 40k. They asked you without telling you. That's a difficult one because I've done this in the past where somebody asked me, what do you think? I remember going for a job. I was only like early 20s at the time and I had no fucking experience, fresh out of uni, and I had this opportunity and I went into this job. And this is going back a bit, you know what I mean? You won't get this salary now, but I was fresh out of uni and they said, what do you think, what are your salary expectations? I think I said like 20, 25 grand, right? I was green as grass. And they then turned around and went, oh, we're looking for someone who wants 40 grand upwards. And I was like, shit, I've massively undersold myself there. And I was like, oh, bugger. So I didn't get the job. That was my first effort straight out of uni of going negotiating for a job. I didn't get it because I'd undersold myself. So I think it is careful. If they put a salary band to you, you definitely want to aim high, right at the very top. If not, tip it a little bit, see if you can push it. If it's in like a public sector and it's banded, you just go to the top. If it's in the private sector, just bang a couple of grand on or whatever and see if you can get it. And then they'll negotiate you down and you'll end up near the top anyway. Yeah. Not the other way around. Well, let's have a look here. Like a car salesman. Yeah. If he sells one top range car a day, leave him to it. Yes, exactly right. This is the point. If like the working from home thing. Yeah, don't worry about the mistake, by the way. Yeah, the working from home thing only matters, I think, if you're a small business, you need to really trust the people. And I'll be looking to incentivize them with some kind of like commission bonus structure, or if they're a shareholder, whatever, right? That's different. Whereas if you're trying to run a business on salary, how do you track that? I do appreciate there's this kind of backlash. I'm okay working from home. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'll tell you what I would say. Let's have a look at. We talked about traction, but we didn't explore it. I've done this in the past. Here we go. A good way that Gino Whitman describes in here is using this. I think it's called People Analyzer. So is it called the People Analyzer? Hang on. Let me just check. I put a bookmark in there. Yeah, the People Analyzer. Right, so what they do there. On the top, you've got the core values of the company, and you've got oh yeah, camera is reversed. The reason why it's reversed is because it's alive. I don't know how to switch it, so you'll have to either read back to front or screenshot it and mirror it. I can't do anything about that. I've tried, honestly. The only way to, because it's live, it does on the front screen of your phone. If you do spin it round, but then I can't see what's going on. Anyway, on this People Analyzer, you put the company's values at the top, and you might choose 5, and you've got to translate them into them questions, like, that you can ask. And then you've got a plus, you've got the people, you've got a plus, a minus, or a plus minus. And the idea being, if you've got 5 criteria that you can ask your questions about, remember what we said in Thinking Fast and Slow, you want a minimum of 3 pluses and 2 plus minus. Right? Minimum of 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses, but no minus. And the idea being is when you're hiring the right people in the right seats, you cannot have a scenario where someone doesn't want to do a certain thing. Right, let's have a look at this one. They put me through the finals next stage next week. Right, okay. And it's a presentation and a panel. I can't lie, I'm really nervous and scared. Right, okay, so have you got this? Right, 1. Hate presenting. 2. Job isn't presenting. How do you get across that? Yeah, of course it's nervous, right? Every time, I used to do a lot of speaking at events. And this might be like, like trade shows. And you get these audiences where you got 200 people. And today, most of it's online. The COVID thing's killed it. But there was a time before COVID where I was training it into London, going to a conference and talking at a conference on stage. And every time you did it, I'd have the presentation running, maybe a demo, software demo. Every time, no matter what, the first 5 minutes, no matter how comfortable you are at speaking in front of people, the first 5 minutes was always nerve-wracking. I don't care what you think, and you'll see this, like, really famous people, even like musicians, like, pop stars and all that, they still get nervous when they go on stage. So yes, presenting is nerves, but here's what you do, right? I think you create a presentation, right, to sell yourself in the best possible way. You can do that offline yourself, make it really good. And then when you go in there, just accept that you're going to be a little bit nervous, but you believe in your presentation. You know the information on there is quality because you prepared it up front. So the more preparation you do on your presentation, the fact that you've got a little bit of nerves going in is fine. I think everyone's all right with that. And what I always find is when I was presenting like that a lot, every time I go on stage, first 5 or 10 minutes, I'd be like fucking going red, and it was obvious I was really nervous. And then after about 5 minutes, I'd settled. Do you know why? Because I was talking about a topic that I knew. I was actually in a flow state in that industry, my tech industry, the data, everything like that. So basically, it's construction management software. I'm in my flow state with that. I'm in my comfort zone. So the nerves are because I'm speaking on stage, but very much what I would say is you start to settle in because you're in that comfort zone. So it's all about preparation. Make sure you're in your comfort zone. Don't fucking lie, obviously. I mean, I do believe you can embellish a CV, but don't lie. And then just accept that you're going to be a bit nervous and you'll be fine. Right, next one, let's have a look. Oh, there's loads here. One, but you can't. Yeah, PowerPoint is your friend. It is. I always like to do more pictorial PowerPoints now rather than just bullet points. They always look a bit sterile. Obviously, Steve Jobs goes on about that. He just uses pictures. But you need a bit of both, right? Imagery and bullets. As a freelancer or employee, should we go extra? Right. Doing more than what we're supposed to do, or showing up to these things, and right. Okay, so this is about going over and above the job. It depends, really. I mean, if you've ever been in a job where you don't want to go over and above, then I would say you're in the wrong job. Now, sometimes we have to do that. We have a job. I've been there where I want it, like when I was in the corporate world, even though I love that work, I just had this calling and need to start my own business. So there was a time where I was getting a little bit disillusioned with being an employee. I still wanted to be in the industry, but I didn't want to work for someone else. I wanted to work for me. So I always think that if you don't go over and above, you're not. You're in the wrong job, you're in the wrong industry, and you ought to do something about that. Sometimes, here's what you can do when you're in a job that you hate, right? Not a job that you hate. Let's say you want to improve your job. It's okay, but you'd like something better. You've got to look at it as, what can I learn from this situation? Like, going into every scenario, if you're there committing 8 hours a day, you might as well see what you can learn out of that. Because when I was in corporate, here's what I did. I learnt the industry, right? Figured out what I could. And then your job is to look at that industry and go, what can I learn out of this that I can then in the future either sell as a freelancer or create a product or service that I can sell back to that industry. There's always something that you can learn, right? And it's like examples. I don't know. I'm just going to pick a job. A nurse, right? A nurse is working for the NHS in the UK, working for the healthcare system. The salaries are just capped, they're just banded, and then you can do extra work. You can do, they have this thing called bank, which is like agency work, and they used to be able to earn really good money, and the government's capped that because people were just taking the piss, and you know, they were like full-time contractors in that market. But anyway, you can't really improve. Even if you rise up the ranks as a nurse, you're only going to get a nurse's salary. So what you can do from that is either accept it and be okay with it and go, right, I'm just going to rise up the rank, become a manager, good salary, great, done. The other route, this is what I said in my video, how long you should stay in your job. I explore all this, links in the description. It is really good. I suggest you watch it after this. But what you can do, whilst you're working as that nurse, say, you can look at the industry. The NHS is a massive amount of opportunity there. If you get behind the fence and you learn it, and you're that way inclined, you're going to find an idea here and there that you can make money out of, right? And that's what you should be doing with your time. You should be like learning behind the scenes, what goes on, how's money made, because there's a whole load of waste there that you know, there's like software apps, there's physical products, there's like biomedical products. All these, the supply chain is massive. And if you were a nurse, you could come up with, like someone I was speaking to is a nurse, right? She's an area of business that she's going into, because she's a registered nurse, she's also interested in cosmetics, like, you know, cosmetic improvements. So she's setting up to do IVs, you know, IV drips. So in order to put the needle in and everything and pierce the skin, you have to be a registered nurse. Now she's setting up to do IVs for like recovery IVs, you know, all these fitness IVs that people will pay really good money for, and health IVs and longevity IVs and things like this. There's a real massive side market in certain, say, affluent parts of the country where they'll pay big money for you as a nurse to hook them up to an IV and pump them full of various procedures, you know. So she's seen that as a market, and you can earn fucking loads of money, like platelet-rich plasma, you know, PRP, where they draw your blood, centrifuge it, extract out the yellow plasma, and then inject it back. You got this vampire facial that women have, or you can do it to repair your joints, all sorts of different uses for platelet-rich plasma. It's 350 to 400 pounds a go. Probably takes you about half an hour. That is a massive business opportunity for anyone that's a nurse that has access to affluent areas, like, you know, where all the, you know, the wags live, footballers' wives and girlfriends and all that. You clean up. So there's always an opportunity. You should be looking in your job. What is the opportunity for me to come back? Anyway, I've gone on there. Let's have a look. As a younger myself, I like that. I can tell, go 120%, yeah. Yeah. In high school, I swept floors and cleaning machines. Right, okay, yeah, this is really good. Often break down. I took responsibility. Right, okay, so that's a good mentality, but not everyone does that. I think you're right there, optional. Hey, man, you're back on. We had a chat the other day, didn't we? On Instagram call. Yeah, how's it going? I know you are the type of young guy that's like on it, you know what I mean? You're going to be a big businessman. You'll be ahead of me. I was, you know, none of this YouTube and things and internet. It wasn't about when I was your age, mate. All we had were books and libraries were limited and that kind of thing. So at your age now, I always think I was a late starter. You'll be smashing it. I won't worry about you. Yeah, I really enjoyed how you teach. The flow is immaculate. Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much. Ever noticed the plant behind you makes you look like you have a green afro? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's not real, this one. Most of my plants are real, apart from this one. Everything else, like only me, I love keeping. If you have we're going off topic here, right? If you keep house plants, I've got a lot in the dining room. It's like a sunroom with windows and everything, and they're all over. And when I was first doing it, I used to kill plants because I'd overwater them. I had a peace lily, chuck water in it, and I was just wondering why it was dead. And it was because I was overwatering them. And I learned that a friend of mine's really into plants. You need one plant. If you have a load of plants in the house, you've got to figure out which one of those plants will tell you when they all want watering. So you just find out which is your plant that tells you. And I have one plant that tells me when they all want watering. When it starts to wilt, right, that's it. Don't look at any others. I've just got one signal plant, and it's just happened that way. You just got to find that pattern. Just look at that plant, and then you just water them all, and that's it. Yeah, self-sufficient for a very young age, from a very young age. So was I, you see. I think the reason why I've ended up like this, because I was self-sufficient. I was forced to be. I talk about it a lot, like I remember right from the age of about 12, I just had this kind of like light bulb moment where I was like, you know what, I've got to dig myself out of this, and I've got to go to university and study and get a career. And back in them days, it was get a career. Now I think it's so much easier for you to start a business and work for yourself. The whole one-man band gig economy is the thing to do. But when I was young, it was like, you've got to go to uni if you want to make something of yourself. I wanted to go to uni, but never knew why. Right, so have you not gone to uni? I went to university 3 times, 3 different subjects. And then I've also studied a 4th profession for my tech, like remote. So you could say 4 times, right? But the 4th one, I didn't go to uni. I just studied for the professional qualification at home and took exams and things. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I'm glad that I have done all that. And it's a bit like going, when we talk about employment, let's look at a CV. If someone has achieved qualifications, it's like on paper a good thing. Doesn't mean that they're gonna, because when I worked in corporate, there was loads of let's say really overqualified engineers that were fucking useless in the office, right? And when you're in a really big business like that, big corporate world sells CVs to clients. They can literally get paid off a CV, right, with very little output. Whereas in the small business world, it's less about CVs, it's more on skills. It would always be, like, I would only hire on skills. If I look at a CV and see all these qualifications, yes, it's an indication. It's an indication that there must be something about that person, but it doesn't say that they've got the skills to do the job. I've interviewed people that had no qualifications, been the brightest person, like guy who created our first version of our software. Probably one of the most cleverest people I've ever met. He was only like 23. He was absolutely Rain Man smart, right? Didn't really have any qualifications, couldn't really communicate, but fucking hell did he have some skills. So it just depends, right? I still think, I'm still pleased that I've got that, because it gives credibility. I mean, it's like, the new business, the Goal Achievement Hub business. I mean, for the journals, like, what what credentials have I got? Well, I've got my business credentials, right? But I've never done e-commerce before. Now, when you start a business, you don't need any qualifications, but I always think that it's good to have them anyway. So like my tech business, me as the leader of that business, I'm qualified in that area, in that specific niche. So I've got professional qualifications and I can use them with clients. It gives credence. In this, obviously it's e-commerce, you don't need that. But I've got, you could say my qualifications and my business experience, right? So I can sell that story. And also, I am actually now going to add a qualification. I'm going on an NLP course, neuro-linguistic programming, because it aligns to, and it's quite good actually, when you rise up the ranks in this stuff, you get qualified in like hypnotherapy and stuff like this. So I think that's going to add to that business, because I'm going to be generating another product down that line. I've got the Journal for Goal Achievement, links down below if you want one. Does everything that I talk about on my channel. But I'm also going to come up with other products that are more aligned to the NLP process. So I'm going on a course to sort of justify that, to say, look, not only are we selling products in this niche, but we've also got some experience and here's some credentials. So I do think university and skills and qualifications are still worth it. But particularly if you're going to go into a small business, you need skills. And if you work for yourself, no qualification in the world is going to help you. It's all skill based. You've got to be able to do stuff. Yeah, okay, there's a ton of messages. Let's have a look. I wanted to go to uni, but didn't know why. Ignored the lure of fucking around for 5 years. Yeah, fair enough. I think that's got my head down, did vocational things. That's a way to do it. I mean, if you think about the AI thing now, if you ever listen to any of the AI experts, and I saw one where the interviewer, the podcaster was saying, what do we do? AI is going to take all our jobs. And the guy turns around, this AI boffin, turns around and says, train to be a plumber, and it's like, well, yeah, that's pretty obvious. That's a damned obvious thing, yeah, be a plumber, do something that AI is not going to replace. I was listening to, I don't really listen to him, but I heard a little short reel from Gary Vee. I don't really listen to Gary Vee because, he's all on the kind of hustle culture, and I'm more about focus blocks of time than like work fucking 18 hours a day like him. But I mean, obviously he's very successful, so I like to listen to stuff. But he said something about, what did he say about AI? He said, if you're in the creative industry and you've got no ideas and all you're doing is repeating what your boss tells you, you're fucked. And I think he's right. They should train to be a plumber. Do something vocational. Well, not just vocational, but just train to be a plumber or something, or somewhere where AI is not going to take your job. If you've got ideas, right? If you can generate an idea and think about, like, it's as simple as what is like what I talk about. What's my identity? Right? Identity evolution cycle. Just literally use this model. What is my identity? Hang on, there you go. I know you're going to have to mirror this. What is my identity, which is your highest level goal? What's your life mission? This is just like a couple of paragraphs. How can I set some goals and use like an OKR method? And then what do I do daily, right? So if you can think about what you want out of life, and you can create a set of goals and action steps, and then every day choose 3 things. What are the top 3 things I can do today towards my goal? And just keep ticking them off. AI will not be much of a problem for you, right? It's because AI, I think AI is great for, there's no point competing with AI on like reciting knowledge, no chance. You might as well forget it. And if you think like 100 years ago, well, we don't know what it was like 100 years ago, but 100 years ago, I would imagine in order to be in the workforce, one of the best skills you could have at that time was to recite knowledge, like understand. If somebody asked you a question about law, you knew exactly the law, you knew where to look, recite knowledge. It's a bit like learning times tables at school, right? Consuming and memorizing knowledge was the way to go. Today, there's no point with that. Even before all these AI, modern AI, even like Google search. And so Google search has been using things like text classifiers for a long time to find information. It's like lowest level NLP again, natural language processing, which is text classifiers, bag of words, all that kind of thing. Google and search engines have been doing that for years. Now we've got AI, it's a bit more sophisticated, but the AI is still not at the point where it's doing rational, reasoned thinking. So if you think about learning models now in university, it's less about reciting knowledge and be able to retain knowledge. It's more about the application of knowledge and the reasoned thinking. So if you're in a job where you're not able to do the rational thought and the reasoned thinking and come up with the reasons why and the ideas and see the opportunities, then that's where you're going to be in trouble. If all you've got is a skill that can be replicated, that's where you ought to be thinking about how can I transition into doing something a bit more like like a plumber or something like that. I think we're a long way off robot plumbers. Anyway, yeah. I am 40 and I've 25 years of experience, include everything on my CV. Yes, you do. There is an argument sometimes to cull certain years out of your CV. I had a friend who was looking for work. His last 2 jobs, brilliant experience, but the rest of it was like fucking around 6 months here and that. If you've got solid work history forever, right back to, you left university, college, school, whatever, then yeah, definitely include it. I always think your CV should be a 1-pager, right? I think if you can get it down to 1 page, you're good, if not 2 pages, and spread it out so it fills 2. But I always think the 1-page CV is the best, and that's what I would do. Right, next one. I found an Islamic mortgage broker and worked for £95 a week at 16 years old, learnt. That's pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Right, £95 a week, whatever, yeah. I mean, obviously you've done it. I'm not any religious white British, but yeah, right, so you work for, right, so you found the Islamic mortgage broker and worked there for £95 a week. That's really good. So obviously you've learned some skills. I mean, hopefully you got some sales skills out of that. Went straight in, got used to lawyers and legal, then joined an insurance brigade, 21, did security good work, yeah. Right, next one. If you were 20 now, what business would you start? I started 2 small businesses, 1 newspaper and 1 consulting think tank, but I run both at the moment. One is generating small amounts of none. Right, okay. If you're 20 and you're trying to start businesses and you've got the newspaper and 1 consulting think tank, that newspaper, is it like you're actually running an online news article, or are you selling newspapers? I don't quite know, but the consultancy think tank sounds great. The problem with that is 20 consultancy think tank. Do you have enough life experience? I'm not saying you don't. You might be the smartest guy in the room, but just perceptions of someone so young as a think tank. You always think older people, that kind of thing. Consultancies quite difficult. I always think that if you're going to be a consultant, obviously, usually, the consultancies are freelance or self-employed, and this is what happens. I worked in corporate consulting, and what tends to happen is the best people in the offices, let's say you got loads of offices of 200 consultants, you can count the good ones on one hand, right? You probably get 5 really good ones, and the rest of them are just fucking make weights. They're just earning the company money based on CVs, like I said. Now, those 5 good ones tend to either be on a very, very high salary, or they're self-employed, and eventually they go and create their own business. So being a consultant, you basically have to be really good to make it work. Otherwise, you still can get work, but it's a hard one. So what business would you do at early 20s? I don't know. I mean, it's a hard one to answer because you've got all these like scams at the minute, like, oh, trade crypto bots, all that bollocks. Be a crypto trader. What's the other one? Oh, there's tons of them. Like, all these like nonsense schemes. Here's what I would do, right? And when you're young, you got to accept that you're young, and that, to be fair, you're not likely to get the top results at that age, but it doesn't matter. It's understanding that I am who I am where I am, and any progress is good. And it's all about knowing that every year you're going to get better. So you've got to have that growth mindset. And then the other one is, I might have put a link down below, how to turn your passions. Yeah, I did. I think I did. How to turn your passion into a profitable business or a profitable venture. It's a bit of a difficult video, that one, because I was in the middle of Krakow Old Town. It was absolutely packed in the summer, and I had to use this noise cancellation software to get rid of all the background noise because there was music going on, and it sounds like really wavy, but the message is solid. That one, what business to start, is always the same. I think you need passion. You've got to look at what you're interested in. There's no point going into a business that you're not passionate about, because what will happen is every business takes longer to get off the ground than we initially think. This book here, I spoke about this earlier, Thinking Fast and Slow, is one of the best books to read on that, because my version's battered, but Daniel Kahneman breaks down loss aversion like you wouldn't believe, and the fact that everyone underestimates what could go wrong when you start a business. Everything takes longer. We're deluded. Have you ever seen any of these big projects, public sector projects like HS2 and whatever, right? Incley Point C. Why do they always run over budget? And we're not just talking like twice over budget, like 5, 6, 7 times over budget. Why are they estimated vastly out of where they end up? Because everyone thinks that they're above the rules, right? Everyone thinks that's not going to happen to me. When someone sets off on a journey, so when people start a business, they think, these are the steps I have to take. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. I'm not going to stumble across any hurdles. And they don't factor in how long, like errors and things like this and things that could happen. They just think, I'm going to do, and in 6 months I'll have this amount of money. And then it never happens, and then they wait, and it's 2 years and they're still there. Well, if you don't have passion for that business, if you don't believe in it, you're going to give up, because you're going to get so disillusioned and bored with it. So, like, I noticed that you said you chose 2 different businesses. I hope you're passionate about both of them, or is one just, because you can get some quick money in? And sometimes we have to do this, sometimes we have to do things just to get money in whilst we work on our passion. But if you're really going to make it serious, you need to be passionate about it. You then need to understand leverage, where you are, and that means, like, am I trying to sell a product or service that's scalable? Am I selling my time for money? You've got to understand the limits with all those things. I'm going to try and sell other people's time for money. I always think that if you've got leverage, which is basically things like leverage in media, leverage in technology. So an argument would be, I used to work as a consultant X amount per hour, and I'd charge for every hour I worked, I'd get paid. And before that, I had a job. I was in a salary, and I was never going to improve. I was only going to ever get the going rate for the hours that I put in, and it was non-scalable. Start a business and hire loads of people, and then earn a little bit of money off them. But ultimately, that's like a lowest form of leverage. Your best form of leverage is media and technology. So obviously, software business, I can then sell licenses. So like week one, I'll sell one license. Week two, maybe sell 10 licenses in the same time, then 100. So you can scale it, right? You can sell more licenses in the same amount of time for the same resources. Well, all right, the resources pick up, but it's exponential. So you want to look for leverage so you can scale. And then the other thing is, I always think that if you're going to start a business, make sure you're accountable, right? You take personal accountability for the upsides and the downsides. And there's not really much else to it than that. You know, you've got to be interested in it, and you've got to accept that things will take longer, right? Because if you don't, you know, it will take longer, and that's fine, right? Don't, and have a look, what is the average time? The other one I would say, I think grit comes into it as well. You got to have a special amount of grit to push through the bad times, because the probability that a business will succeed is quite low. And usually one of the only things that makes it succeed, because it's not worth it if you look on paper, it's not worth it. The only thing that pushes you through is probably having the grit to survive and push through no matter what. Like, I'm going 2 feet in and I'm not giving up no matter what. And that comes from the passion as well. If you don't have passion, you're not going to have the grit. So I think those are important, right? I've missed like a ton of questions here. I designed the Build Back Better scheme for my clients, right? Okay, like canal floods. All right, pay more over the odds, but never get insured again. Right? Is this for like you're in financial services? Yeah. Well, this is it then. If you've got that kind of product and you can sell it and market it, that's it. Right, you're asking about the think tank. Right. Okay. How do you? Sorry, the chat only allows limited text, so I can't write more than 180 characters. Right. Okay. Okay, makes sense. Right. Newspaper in East Africa, African, and outlet that publishes the latest news. Right. Okay. 150k impressions. So right, you generate 150,000 impressions so far, and it's 3 years old. And I just turned 30. Consulting is hard. Right. Is that 150,000 impressions in what period? Like in like per month or per year or over the 3 years? You know, like you sounds like you're doing SEO there, organic SEO. It's a niche art. I mean, I could probably do a live on organic SEO. I am not an organic SEO expert. My cousin is, Simone, but I listen to her most days and most weeks, and I'm having a little go of it myself, so I understand the principles of it. In fact, if you go on my channel and look for the story, it's in the business playlist, probably one of the latest ones on how I started the e-commerce business. I talk a lot about SEO in there and what you need to do. Yeah, from Bolton. Right, I'm not. You're from Bolton, I know that. Yeah, I'm from Bury actually, which is next door. My office is in Bolton. Remember, we spoke about this. I'm trying to get contracts from. Ahmed, right? You're trying to get contracts from government. I don't know what it's like, right? Where are you located? Because you're saying newspaper is East African, right? Are you in East Africa or some other country? Because trying to get government contracts is really hard. Obviously, I try and get government contracts from a software company. It's incredibly difficult. You know, the long sell, consultative sale is very, very difficult. So I wish you good luck on that. It tends to be regional as well, you know, but again, it's all based on the same things, trying to get government contracts, secure your private first. Yeah, you know what? When I first started my software business, oh, you're in London, right? And the newspapers just covers East African news. Ah, right, okay. Translating it, is it for UK viewers? Overall breaking world news, right? Okay, so is it UK viewers about? Right, okay. So it's like a niche paper. That's pretty good, right? So yeah, so you really want to like maximize, really tighten down your SEO to like really, really tight. Do you do like regional SEO, like UK? Make it international. Yeah, but it's quite niche, isn't it? I mean, how do you, that's quite a niche SEO offering. You know what I mean? Whereas you could look, right, East African, areas of London, target that demographic. You could do it like that, you know. Regional SEO, yeah, UK, East Africa, but Western countries where diaspora lives. Right, okay, yeah, obviously, yeah, this is it. You can do. You just get good at SEO. I was just saying about getting government contracts. When I first started my software business, I was in consultancy within large public infrastructure projects, right? Energy projects, that kind of thing. It's all related to the government. And then when I first started my software business, I thought that I wouldn't be able to get such clients because it's hard. So I created the software for the small private companies initially. Now I realised that part of the market I wasn't used to, right? And because I'd always operated in the enterprise big infrastructure projects as a consultant, so I was tapping into an area that, even though I worked in there, I wasn't that used to those clients. And I tried, I think my mindset, you could say it was like a limiting belief, or maybe like a imposter syndrome. I thought, I'm creating software, even though I'm working in corporate consultancy in big government contracts. I can't sell into there because it's a new brand. So I had imposter syndrome. So I went for the small private clients. Couldn't sell it because it wasn't me. And then it was only when I decided to go for the government contract, I pivoted the software target towards the government contracts, where I almost went. I watched a video on going like, if you look at the market, there's kind of like three levels, and you've got at the bottom, you've got the lower ticket offer, right, which is, and you want on the video that I did about starting the e-commerce, I go through this, the cost of sale. So the lower ticket offer, you can't have a high cost of sale there. You need it automated, so people just put in the credit card details or Apple Pay or whatever. So that's how you do the lower. Then you got the mid-market, the mid-tier, which is sort of halfway between, where you're getting some reasonable sized contracts. And you might have to have things like video calls to make the sale. But if you have face-to-face, it's like a high cost of sale. And then you've got the enterprise or the top tier, like the corporate level sales, where you only need a few clients. That's where you can really have proper sales, face-to-face sales, high cost of sales. So you need to look at it like that. So if you're doing this consulting, where are you aiming? Getting government contracts. It sounds like you're trying to go at the top. Maybe what I did when I first started the software business was did a lot of consulting to pay for the software. So we bootstrapped it, a lot of consulting, and we was offering mid-tier pricing, right, for top tier services. So we was competing with the big consultancies, because there's a lot of big, you're in London, right? Like PwC, fucking Deloitte, they're all there, right? Well, they're in every city, but trying to compete with the big consultants, you might have to offer mid-tier price for that same service. That's what I did, just to develop your name. All right. Anyway, I've been on this live for a while. I might do another one, actually. I think we should do one on SEO. I'm going to have a little think. I'm not an SEO expert, but I know quite a bit about my experience with it, running 2 businesses. So yeah, thank you very much. Right, the consultant aims to do economic assessment and policy analysis, like the impact of a policy for governments and private businesses. Wow, that's pretty niche. Yeah, that is quite niche. So yeah, sounds like you guys need to hook up and have a chat. Anyway, yeah, it's very niche. I wish you good luck with that. What you should be doing with that as well, when you do get going with this consultancy, I would then be looking for opportunities in there. How can I build a platform? How can I lock a client into some kind of service model? Or, like, I mean, obviously that's how I went from consulting to software. So in my software business, our software literally is just a digital version of the consulting that we do. And that's what a lot of software is. It just digitizes what you're telling clients to do, right? And then it's same with the journal, right? The journal, what's in here is just, a product version of what I talk about on my channel, how to set goals and get them. That's what software is to a consultant. It's like, how can you leave a client? So you'll do some consulting, and then you leave them with a software license. And this is our model. So we go in, there's always a bit of upfront consultancy and setup and onboarding, right? So there's a heavy payment up front. And then the legacy is you leave them with a software license, because the software then is set up to deliver what you've done in the upfront consulting stage. So you want to be looking for opportunities in that. It's great being a consultant, but start to think about how you can expand your leverage beyond just being a consultant into things like products and services. Right, I'm going to shoot. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for all the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe. Go and watch, 2 videos I will watch. One, I'll put them both in the link below in the, your first time, thanks. There's 2, if you look in the description, the 2 videos that I would watch is, one is how long you should stay in your job. That's the first one. And I think further down, there's one called, it might be on my chat. You might have to go and look for it in the business playlist. How I created the e-commerce business. And I've done others like how I started the tech business, how I leveraged from that to the e-commerce business. And in the e-commerce business, I've got a lot in there about learning SEO and all that kind of thing. Recommend a book before you leave for us to read. Right. On business, for you, Ahmed, definitely that one. Traction, Gino Whitman. This is brilliant. In my software business, we're ISO 9001 accredited, which is quite bureaucratic, and it comes with a lot of overhead. You have to get accredited, and then you have yearly audits, and you have to carry out things like internal audits. There's a lot of overhead and to carry and costs year on year to maintain it. Traction, the entrepreneurial operating system in here, is a much lighter version of, that's it. There's 6 components to it, right? You've got your business in the middle. I don't know if is that coming across? You have to mirror it. There's 6 components to it, and there's like basically half a dozen tools that you need to run a business, and this is absolutely flipping brilliant. It's like ISO 9001 quality management systems, super light, which you can apply to any business. And the main things, right, that you need to do in here, you've got the vision one, which at the top. This one is like your mission statement, and it's what they have this, I think it's called Vision Traction Organizer, where it covers what the mission statement are, what the key like values and objectives are, what the 1 year vision is, what the 5 year, I can't remember, 10-year vision. And then at the bottom, it's got rocks, which are quarterly results. Like what they're like in the journal. Obviously, we create goals and work towards them each day. And the journal lasts 6 months, and there's 3 reviews in it. One is at a week, first week, just to check in how you're doing. Then you got a 3-month review, and then you got a 6-month review. We work in quarterly cycles, right? And in this, in the Vision Traction Organizer, you have quarterly rocks. And these are like results, which are like a goal. It's like, we need to launch this product. And then you give that to one person. So everyone has a number, a metric, right? And that's what the Vision Traction Organizer does. People, which is what we've been talking about earlier on this live, is the right people in the right seats. And the tool there is that people organizer, you know, mark them plus minus, all that kind of thing. The data component is probably, when you start off, the most important thing. This is what you call a business scorecard, which is absolutely mega. I don't even know, where's the data component? A business scorecard is, to the lay reader, it looks like a P&L, right? Profit and loss sheet. But it's not. It goes far more than that. The problem with what Gino Whitman says, the problem with normal management accounting with a P&L is you always look at it after the event. You look at it after the event. So you're seeing it in delay. You're seeing it after things have happened, and then you're trying to learn and go forward. The scorecard is trying to predict what's happening next. And the difference is, yes, you might have your financials in there and performance, like sales and number of units. But if you're, like I've done a scorecard for the e-commerce business, and what it's looking at is things like number of impressions. You know, I noticed you said impressions. So you're going to capture a figure weekly, number of impressions, advertising spend, cost per click, what's the other one? Cost per click, fucking hell, percent, it's, I can't remember. Anyway, right, you're going to look at impressions, right? How many people viewed the ad? How many people clicked through, right? How many sales you made, right? And blah, blah, blah. How many followers you got on whatever social channel? What is, you know, is it growing? And what you're doing is you're looking at trends weekly. You're going to capture a figure, right? And then you're going to notice patterns. You're going to notice every week, if we get this amount of impressions, we're likely to get that many views, that many clicks, that many, you know, down the funnel. And you can track every stage of the funnel. And also, if we advertise this advert, we're going to get so many followers a week, building a more of an audience, we're going to get more newsletter subscribers. And you're tracking these metrics weeks to week. And there'll be a relationship between, you know, the profit and loss that we talked about, which is in management accounting. The end of the month, the performance of the business, how much money they spend on outgoings compared to what's coming in. There'll be a relationship between that and how many people come in at the top of the funnel. And all you have to do is collect those figures weekly, and you can pretty much predict what's likely to happen next month based on that, right? So this is your book to read. I know we're going off on one now. Definitely read this book. If there's one book, I would say read this one. Really good for business, right? I mean, I could go on about that on the scorecard. You can see all sorts of things. So like, obviously I've just got into e-commerce, started doing the scorecard. I noticed that really good months were things like Father's Day, right? Because everyone sold lots of journals to Father's Day. The recent one we just did was like a back to school or university, you know, like your study goals. That was another campaign. And you can see little peaks in times a year when impressions go up. And the other thing is the advertising gets more efficient and all this kind of thing. And you're able to predict what's going to happen next. Now, over the summer, like July and August and September to some extent have been absolutely dreadful for e-commerce, I would say. And it is known to be dreadful because if you think about e-commerce, everyone's on holiday. They're out in the sun, no one's looking at the phone scrolling. And, I remember my mate, Danny, who I share the office with for tech business, he used to be in e-commerce, he did really well, sold his business. And he used to say, he used to pray for rain because then people would be indoors and they'd be on the phones and buying shit. So the worst times are during the summer months when everyone's on holiday, and they've also got the back to school costs. Now, the best months are coming up the next month, November, December, January, because, all the Christmas and New Year is the best for that type of product. But I've been tracking that and I could see, and one of the other things that I would tell, you need to look at, Google Console, you can. Yeah, which article, are you tracking all the, I do this, so that's similar to what I do for my tech business. Because my tech business, no one's putting a credit card in, it's like, the massive deals. So it's custom price and all that kind of thing. So we do more Google Search Console and what's happening there on the analytics, and using Stat Counter as well to look at things like that. And organic SEO is really good for that. And you can see what times a year, what articles go, what to double down on. You're right, yeah, you're looking at the stats. That I would record in a scorecard, because there's a relationship between people coming in at the top of the funnel and actually doing business with you at the bottom, right? And you want to track that. I mean, a quick story now on the e-commerce. Recently, I've attracted, I started business early this year, the e-commerce business, and I had to prove it, right, at the start. Right, I just thought, I've got to do this myself, got to start and prove it. And you get to a point where it attracts the attention of other people, and then they want to jump on board. So we're trying to build the team now. And you attract investors and things like this, right? And because I've been waiting for, let's call it a deal to go through, I put the e-commerce business, because it was a shit time of year as well, I put it into what's called maintenance mode. And the problem with going in maintenance mode as a business, you can only do it for so long, because if you're in maintenance mode, what tends to happen is eventually you get caught out by entropy, right? And it will start going the opposite way. So if you're, say, sponsoring ads, whether it's Meta, Amazon, Google, doesn't matter, cost per click ads, sometimes you need to sponsor a little bit of advertising because it helps support your organic SEO, right? It can do. Certainly on Amazon, if you stop spending on Amazon advertising, your organic search results, they'll penalize you. It's really weird. Whereas if you just up your spend a little bit, you'll start getting more organic sales because you're pushing it. And obviously, sometimes your A costs or your average advertising cost of sale, or if you want to do ROAS, whatever, they're both the same, just different way of calculating, will look terrible because you're overspending, but you've got to look at your overall sales. So sometimes going into maintenance mode will tell you a signal, and it's delayed. It'll be like a month later, your sales will just tank. So this is why, one of the reasons why you need to keep the scorecard. So go and read this book, because you've got to spot all them problems. I mean, there's loads, by the way, on reading list, obviously go to my website, andyholt.co.uk. I've got on there reading list. I need to add a few books to it, and I am going to, at some stage, revolutionise that reading list, make it a bit more, like attach more videos to it, put a bit more like prettier content, and really break it down and put some of my own views on there a bit more, rather than just, at the minute it's just a one-liner, just because, it's time, but I am going to revolutionise it. Right. Thank you. I remember watching an Australian kid back then who founded the Audi. Right, so this guy had been watching Davey, the Australian kid who founded the Audi, right? Because I've started the e-commerce business, he's the guy that I watch. Is he called Davey? He did the Audi. He sold something crazy like 200, $300 million worth of these Audis, which, like, they look fucking terrible. They're like a bad onesie, but the craze went like you wouldn't believe. Davey Fogarty, that's it. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, he's a genius, right? The guy is just a young kid and he's an absolute genius and he understands e-commerce. So this is who I'm learning off at the minute. He's absolutely brilliant. That guy, you want to listen to him as well. He is really good. I do find some of his content is a little bit advanced. The things that he talks about are, to me, the step two. You know, he's going on about email marketing. Email marketing is really important, but when you first start a business, I think it's step two, because it's a lot of time invested to email 2 or 3 people a month or whatever. I think you're better off focusing on building organic SEO content at first. So I think some of Davey's stuff is great. I think it fits more once you've reached a level. Like sometimes you just got to start, and then once you get somewhere, listen to his stuff. Obviously, he's a fucking really successful, but some of the stuff he talks about, I think, is step two. That's my opinion. Yeah, terrible product, but good niche and marketing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy has absolutely smashed it with that Audi. I won't be seen dead in one, you know, but maybe, I don't know, I think it's quite trendy, you know, like, I can imagine, like, young girls, comfort clothes, it works, you know what I mean? And the fact that it's, like, so different and out there it's niche, and the thing is, his marketing and the way he did it is brilliant. It's like they say, pick your platform, right? I know in order for my own e-commerce, I've got to hit TikTok. I've done a little bit of TikTok, but it's more of an afterthought. But I do have to hit TikTok, which is one area. And there's a guy I know, well, I've been put in touch with a guy he was the business partner of, you know, the channel How to Beast, a really big self-improvement channel. He's a business partner of him, and he's got a publishing business over in States, or it might be in Mexico City with my mate Joel and everything. I've been put in touch with him, who has this sort of scheme where you can sell products on TikTok and make it viral. So I've got to set something up there, but I'm still waiting on this this deal to go through for this investment, so I can chuck money at it. So maybe, you know, this is what I've been listening to Davey Fogarty about. I think, you know, doing these type of things and getting it viral is another matter. Yeah, thank you very much. Right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, like, subscribe, go and watch them videos I told you about. And yeah, see you all next time.